Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that grips you from the very first moment and refuses to let go. So settle in, get comfortable, and let me take you into a small, quiet town where one unexpected act of courage changed everything forever. The story begins on a chilly evening in late autumn, the kind where the wind nips at your cheeks and the streetlights flicker like they're tired of fighting the dark. This town wasn't big, barely a dot on the map, but people knew each other here, and secrets didn't stay hidden for long, except for one secret that stayed buried. Far too long a secret sitting behind the counter of a dusty old diner on the corner of Ridgeview Street. Her name was Emily. She moved like someone who wanted to take up as little space as possible, always polite, always quiet, always smiling, but the kind of smile that was stretched thin like she was holding it together with frayed threads. She carried trays with practiced grace, but anyone paying close attention could see it, the faint stiffness in her shoulders, the way she winced when she reached too high, and worst of all, the bruises dark and yellowing peeking out from beneath the collar of her uniform or along her wrist. When her sleeve slipped up, most people didn't ask. They assumed life was just hard for her, or maybe they didn't want to get involved. But all of that changed the night the Iron Serpents rolled into town. Now the Iron Serpents weren't your typical biker gang. In fact, calling them a gang always felt off. They were loud, sure, tough, definitely, and they looked intimidating enough to make strangers cross the street, but they had rules. They believed in loyalty, protection, and standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Their leader was a man named Cole, a broad-shouldered, bearded brickwall of a human with sharp eyes that noticed everything and a calmness that came from surviving a life nobody would envy. That night Cole and his crew pulled up to the diner after a long ride, engines rumbling like thunder as they lined their bikes outside. They weren't looking for trouble. Just a hot meal, coffee, strong enough to wake the dead, and a few minutes to stretch their road-worn legs. When they walked in, every head in the diner snapped toward them, forks froze, mid-air conversations stopped, but Cole just offered a polite nod, took a seat, and let his guys spread out quietly. That's when he saw her, Emily. She approached their booth with the same delicate smile she always wore, coffee pot in hand, and an apologetic tone in her voice, as if she expected them to be annoyed with her presence. But Cole wasn't looking at her smile, he was looking at the bruise blooming across the side of her neck, the kind of bruise shaped by fingers, not accidents. Emily noticed him staring and tugged her collar up fast, but it was too late. Cole didn't say a word, not then, not while she poured coffee, not while she took their order, not even when one of his bikers leaned over and whispered, asking if he'd seen the mark. He just nodded once, kept watching, quietly thinking, deeply analyzing, because Cole didn't jump to conclusions. He knew better than anyone how dangerous assumptions could be, but the more Emily moved around the diner, the more he saw it a flinch when a plate clattered too loud, a tremble in her hand. When she poured a refill, a haunted emptiness in her eyes that he recognized all too well. When she dropped off their food, Cole finally spoke, his voice low, gentle, not wanting to scare her. He asked if she was okay. Emily froze, visibly uncomfortable, gave a tight smile, and said she was fine, but her voice cracked just a little. Cole let it go for the moment, because the last thing he wanted was to push her into fear. So the Serpents finished their meals, paid their bill, and prepared to head out. But Cole didn't leave, not yet. He lingered near the door, pretending to adjust his sunglasses, while his guys stepped outside, and that's when the second part of the story unraveled. Right before his eyes, a black pickup truck pulled up fast, screeching, into a parking spot. A man stepped out, jaw clenched, fists already balled up. He stormed into the diner like a tornado and went straight toward Emily, grabbing her arm so tightly she gasped. Cole stiffened instantly, but he waited, listening, watching the man hiss sharply at her, his voice low and furious. Cole caught just enough to understand. Financial trouble, accusations, jealousy, anger, but most importantly, fear. Emily was terrified of him. Her whole body shrank back as she muttered apologies, trying to calm him down, trying to avoid causing a scene, but he wasn't having it. His grip tightened, and that's when Emily winced, the same wince she had shown when reaching for a tray, and that was it. Cole stepped forward so quietly the man didn't notice until a shadow blocked his light. Cole stood there, towering, calm, but dangerous. In the kind of quiet way that made people rethink their life choices, he told the man to let her go. The man snapped, "Who the hell are you?" But his voice faltered because behind Cole, the entire Iron Serpents stood silently watching, like a wall of steel and leather. The man puffed up, pretending not to be intimidated, but Emily tugged her arm free and stepped behind Cole. Instinctively, the gesture said everything. Cole warned the man that he had exactly one chance to walk out peacefully, but the man made the mistake of grabbing for Emily again, and in that second, the diner changed. Cole moved so fast no one saw the shift. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted gently but firmly enough to stop him cold, and said something low in his ear. Something no one else heard, something that drained every ounce of fight out of the guy. The man stumbled back, muttered that this wasn't over, and bolted out of the diner. Peeling out of the parking lot, Cole didn't chase him. He just turned to Emily and asked again if she was okay, and this time, she didn't lie. Tears welled up. She shook her head and whispered that she didn't know what to do anymore. She explained everything in a trembling voice how that man her boyfriend had become, controlling how his anger had escalated, how the bruises weren't accidents, how she had no family, no place to go, and felt trapped. Cole listened quietly without judgment, and then he made a decision, one that would shake the whole town. The Serpents didn't just leave that night, they stayed parked outside the diner until closing time, then escorted Emily home, making sure the boyfriend wasn't lurking. But that was only the beginning. The next morning, Cole paid a visit to the police station. Not threatening, not angry, just calm and firm, explaining Emily's situation and pressing them to take action, legally, properly, by the book. The officers took it seriously, especially with the Serpents offering protection and witnesses from the diner, who stepped forward once they heard what happened. The town talked, of course, people always talk, especially when bikers get involved. Some gossiped, assuming trouble, others whispered that something big was happening, but no one expected what came. Next, the boyfriend returned the following evening, drunk, furious, ready to cause chaos. He stormed toward the diner again, but this time, he didn't make it through the door, because an entire row of Iron Serpents were standing outside, waiting calmly. Not violent, not threatening, just present like an unmovable wall. The man tried yelling, swinging, shouting, threats, but Cole didn't let any of his men touch him instead. Cole recorded everything, the threats, the aggression, the attempted forced entry, and sent it straight to the police. By the time officers arrived, the man was red-faced, spit-flying, screaming nonsense. They arrested him on the spot. The town watched as the handcuffs clicked shut and the Serpents stepped aside quietly, without fanfare, without celebration. Justice handled properly. Thanks to them, Emily was safe for the first time in years. But the story doesn't end there, because something remarkable happened next. The town that once eyed the bikers with suspicion saw what they had done. Saw the kindness beneath the leather jackets and roaring engines. Saw the loyalty, the protection, the heart of the Iron Serpents, and little by little, people started reaching out, offering Emily help, a place to stay, a job opportunity, counseling resources, and maybe for the first time she felt supported. Cole checked on her regularly, making sure she knew she wasn't alone, and Emily slowly bloomed into someone free, confident, even hopeful. The diner added new lights, new colors, warmth returned to her smile, and that bruised, quiet girl was gone, replaced by someone rebuilding her life. The story spread across town, then across counties. People told it as proof that heroes don't always look how you expect. Sometimes they ride motorcycles, sometimes they wear leather, sometimes the people you fear are the ones who stand between you and danger. And the guy who had terrorized her, well, he faced charges, enough of them that he disappeared from her life for good. Emily eventually moved to a new apartment, started taking classes, started painting again, something she had given up years before. She lived like someone who had finally taken a deep breath after years underwater. And Cole, well, he never asked for thanks, but Emily insisted on giving it every time she saw him, and every time he just smiled and told her she saved herself. They just helped her see she could stand again. The whole town changed their view of the Serpents. Businesses that once ignored them began greeting them. Doors opened, conversations shifted, and the Iron Serpents became something no one expected. Guardians, protectors, the kind of men who stepped in when others looked away. And that single moment, that one choice to speak up instead of staying silent, rippled through the entire community, changing not just one life but many. So if you ever think your actions can't make a difference, remember this story. Remember Emily, remember Cole, and remember that sometimes a single act of courage is enough to shock an entire town and change it forever. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video, where we explore another powerful tale of humanity, courage, and unexpected heroes.